Hey everybody, this is herculespetix, founder, curator, docent, and gift shop employee of the herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies. Today we're going to be looking at Arf number 2, Arf Museum. This is the second volume from 2006 of this fun series. Basically each issue is a treasure trove of lost cartooning classics. And we'll start off with another well-designed cover. Once again, this is the brainchild of Craig Yo. He's the editor and designer and writes almost all the copy in here. Nice little collage cover mixing a bunch of old Yellow Kid cartoons and this tattoo cartoon. And that seems to be the theme of this issue, the Yellow Kid and tattooed women. A little binary theme. It's pretty much a similar design as the first one. Pretty nice looking book here. And let's crack it open. We start off with this Russell Patterson cartoon. And I kind of like this one. I guess this guy was looking at this nude painting too long. And now he has a black eye. Here's a Percy Crosby cartoon from 1929. A little Skippy cartoon. So once again, we're looking at the interplay of fine art and comics. But this one, the theme being Arf Museum. So just cartoons about museums and the art world. Here's a really early one. In fact, this is like one of the first cartoons that was actually called a cartoon. This is from Punch Magazine, 1884. And I think this is it's John Leach. And these all these poor people are in a museum looking at cartoons on the wall instead of like fine art. I guess cartoon was a word for centuries. That was like the rough sketch that an artist would make before he, made the final painting. But then around the late 1800s, people, due to Punch Magazine, they started the whole idea that a cartoon is a humorous drawing, That's when that word cartoon became associated with that. And this one is actually called Cartoon Number 1. And it makes it sound like this was the first time someone called something like this a cartoon. What we think of as a cartoon. Here we have Billy DeBeck of Barney Google fame. And another cartoon talking about being in a museum. Here's a Chester Gould strip. And I can't really read this. Is it the Gravies? I guess Chester Gould had another strip other than Dick Tracy. I like this one. Once again, this is another cartoon kind of ribbing modern art. And his family's looking at all this modern art. When they turn around, they look like they're drawn by Picasso. They're all modernist. This one is great. Charles Adams talking about the maze-like quality of many museums. And this guy looks down and he just sees a minotaur quietly waiting for him. And of course he's very worried. He has this worried look at his face. That's a good one. Then we have this one by Ellison Hoover. This is from the 20s. And we see a museum and actual comic strips are on the wall. And it's funny because this was a gag. He thought this was something that would never happen. Therein lies the humor. But of course, as we know, now there are museums that show original comic art on their walls. This is a cartoon from a young Hugh Hefner, 1951. Hugh Hefner, just like John Irving and a bunch of other... I'm sorry, not John Irving. Forget I said it. But he's a failed cartoonist. Of course, he's a huge success in everything else he did. But he wanted to be a cartoonist as a young man. And this is an example of one of them. This is kind of a continuation of the first issue. All these cartoons kind of making fun of modern art. Here's the cover of Journey into Unknown Worlds. This is Carl Burgess. And they reprint a story by Don Rico. It's from 1953. Modern art. Look at that. I love seeing these cartoonists do their take on modern art. Look at this guy. That's amazing. It's pretty nice Don Rico art all around. Basically, it's about this old guy. He's the trustee at a museum. He hasn't been there in years, even though he sits on the board. But he figures, I should go check out the museum since I sit on the board, you know. And he's a traditionalist. He loves everything to be nice and classical. It isn't like anything newfangled. So he's strolling through the museum, looking at all these classics. He's just loving it. But then he comes to the modern art wing. And he's disgusted. Here's another great example of Don Rico trying to do it's like Picasso meets Dali. It's like Frankenstein is there. So he basically, he's furious. And he says, I must see the curator of this museum. Give him a piece of my mind. And this curator obviously is more into new stuff, you know. He says, I'm afraid that art has to keep up with the times, Mr. Peters. And he shows him another goofy-looking canvas. And Mr. Peters says, beautiful. Paintings should be real. They should look like something actual. Think so, Mr. Peters? What do you think now? And the curator turns around. And he's... Oh, that's such a dumb ending. It's fucking hilarious, though. That's a total shock ending. Oh, this is fucking gorgeous, guys. Polly and Her Pals by Cliff Sterrett. I mean, most of the Polly and Her Pals strips were amazing. But this one, him once again tackling modern art. And whatever his name is, Pops or Gramps, the main character in Polly and Her Pals, he goes to this museum. Of course, everything looks ugly to him. You know, there's all these ugly, weird representations of females, of the female form. But man, this cartooning is amazing. I see so much Skip Williamson in this. It almost looks like Skip Williamson, he predicted Skip Williamson's art style. Him trying to ape modern art. God, every panel of this is a gem. He's got beautiful colors. And so when he comes out of the museum, he sees this kind of big fat lady, and he gives her a big kiss. Because after seeing all those ugly women, he's like, she looks great. And then he walks off snapping his fingers. That's a goofy one. Of course, that wouldn't play today. I mean, it shouldn't play anytime. You shouldn't go around kissing ladies. This is a comic made especially for Arf by Mort Walker. And this is a little kind of an autobio comic about how Mort Walker, you know, the Beetle Bailey creator, at the time he was part of the National Cartoonist Society. Him and his friend are in a museum looking at Lichtenstein paintings, and they know all the sources. They're like, oh yeah, that's an Irv Novick. This is plagiarism. This is bullshit. We should invite Roy Lichtenstein to our next meeting and kind of nail him. And they do just that. Back in 1964, I guess they invited Roy Lichtenstein. And I like how they draw him with all the dots. And of course, he's like a fanboy. He's like, I always wanted to meet these guys. This is great. I got an invitation. And then the Mort Walker's like, let's let him talk a little, then we'll blast him. And he's so humble and charming, he totally wins everyone over, and they give him a round of applause. He basically just says, I'm sorry, I was a struggling artist, and I made a big painting of a comic for a joke. But people liked it, and they bought it, so I painted more of them. And now I'm not a starving artist. And cartoonists can get that, you know, because they're always working job to job. This is nice, I guess, RF Outcault. I never learned how to say that name. Outcault? He did this Yellow Page 2-page spread. I'm sorry, Yellow Kid 2-page spread about the Louvre, an exhibition at the Louvre. Of course, he turned into a big, funny, riotous cartoon. This is pretty amazing, just how much work is in this. All these little sight gags in the background, beautiful colors. And then there's even, it says Around the World with the Yellow Kid. It says by Rudolph Bloch, and it's written as if the Yellow Kid wrote it. So it's basically the Yellow Kid, like saying, hey, me and these guys was in France, and we's at this museum. That's my horrible interpretation of how the Yellow Kid talks. But this is super rare. And of course, it's from the collection of Bill Blackbeard. God bless that man. That guy should get the Nobel Prize. This is a guy named Reimer. Wow, that's a name. Reimer Keller, circa the 50s. It was from a girly mag and called Wham. And the security guard in the museum saying, my wife found a copy of Wham in my pocket. And he's got a black eye. But I guess the joke is that in a museum, you can see all the titty you want. You know, there's tons of nudes. But if you have a little magazine with a naked lady, people are going to look askew at you. Oh, guys, this is gorgeous. Frank King, Gasoline Alley from 1939. There's a couple of Gasoline Alley strips that kind of either pay homage or make fun of modern art. And this one is just another one. We see Skizix. He's in the museum. I wish I could see these big size, these Frank King's version of modern art. But he basically starts daydreaming that he's in this modern art world. And look at this beautiful surrealism. Just so much fun. I wish Gasoline Alley was like this every week. Just this psychedelic craziness. Look at the colors on this comic. I'm not familiar with Gasoline Alley. I never had any of the collections. I always heard that their Sundays were a thing of beauty. But I had no idea that he was doing stuff with color like this. This is just amazing. This was on newsprint for free in your paper. It's just incredibly gorgeous stuff. And then, of course, he wakes up at the end and it's like, oh, what a dream. So it was all a dream. But, man, this is just a total treat for the eyes, this strip. I got to get more Gasoline Alley, that's for sure. I'd have them by now, but I'm always broke. This is a Bill Holman comic from 1943, Bill Holman of Smokey Stover fame. And, man, I just love his cartooning. It's just so animated and fun. It's just pure comical cartooning, you know, at its finest. It's just a really goofy gag. Here we have Otto Soglow's The Little King. Once again, making fun of modern art. I love these examples of these cartoonists. I gotta say, some of them, it looks just like as good as any modern art I've ever seen. Oh, I love this Ernie Bushmiller Nancy strip from Nancy and Sluggo from 1950. They're looking at the modern art exhibit once again. We see these crazy figures. And Nancy says, hey, there's the artist who painted these. Maybe we can get a job. Hey, mister, do you need new models? And they're doing all these crazy poses. Oh, that's rich. And then we have a nice little comic from Patrick McDonnell of Mutt's fame. And so there's the hors d'oeuvres for this issue. And then, this is amazing. This is a previously unpublished Yellow Kid drawing from 1900. Pretty crazy. Really beautiful, well painted too. That's just gorgeous. Never been a fan of Yellow Kid. It's just too of its time. I basically don't even understand what they're saying half the time when I read those strips. But some of the art's really nice. We have the page of dedications and links and just lots of information. Even tells us about the next issue. Very informative page. And then we have the contents. Another unpublished drawing of the Yellow Kid here. And now we have the erotic Arf of Reimer Keller. And this guy's interesting. Look at his style. It's the most primitive, like tossed off looking style ever. And it was for utilitarian reasons. He said I could draw more cartoons this way. But it definitely looks nice. There's something about it. Like, look how he barely draws the backgrounds. He just scribbles them in. Look at this rug and these shoes on the ground. Literally scribbles. But he just drew these cute girls. And I guess people liked them. And I kind of like it, to be honest. The initial caps on this are by Jules Paskin from the 20s. These are very odd, kind of erotica initial caps. He was specially commissioned for this issue. This artist named Dean Eagle did a portrait of Reamer Keller, showing him surrounded by his girls, his ladies. And we get a little biographical stuff about him and some more of his comics, his cartoons. And they are really dashed off. But it's kind of that's all you need. Who cares that the bookshelves are barely scribbled in? You get the idea. And these characters do have a real liveliness to them. Probably because they are so quickly drawn. So these, I guess, were in like those kind of girly mags. They're all that kind of comic, that kind of cartoon. Man, look at her hair there. These are fun. They're not that funny, but they're fun. Very lighthearted. And then they do a callback to models and art from last issue. And so we see Reamer doing his take on models and art. He was almost kind of like a comic strip. Hollywood starlet says she won't hold still for cheesecake art. And it's just these quotes of this kind of basically a girly model, but she's saying all these high-minded things. I think bikinis are disgusting. Look at this one. So the ones on this page, these are actually rough concepts. So these are even rougher than his normal published comics. These were never published. And I can see why they're rough concepts. These jokes are they don't really work. And now we have, sometimes the design makes things a little hard to read. This is a criticism of Yo's stuff. You get your big hands off me, ape, or big ape, whatever. The initial caps are by J. Allen St. John, the great Tarzan artist. And they're all monkeys. This is really interesting here. This is a special effects artist. This is Willis H. O'Brien. Sketch layout for the original King Kong, or one of the King Kong posters. He was really good. I don't think I've ever seen Willis O'Brien's artwork. And here we have a Bettie Page two-page spread from 1954. Not really have anything to do with comics. So I guess this is almost like a fumetti. These are just really over-the-top groaner gags. Man, Bettie Page really was something. That face. This is interesting. I guess there was a sculpture in 1887 by Emmanuel Fremier, and it's this. Kind of a weird sculpture. Craig Yo says that he discovered this at a comic convention years ago. And the guy didn't even know what he had. He said, I think it's a pulp cover. But it's not. And I guess that statue influenced all these other political cartoons. Something about this archetypal monkey grabbing this woman in that certain way. I guess it was a very popular statue. So we see all these political cartoons from 1897 all the way to 1939. Basically paying homage to this sculpture. Kind of interesting, the lineage of this. Oh, that's a great poster, propaganda poster. This is by a guy named H.R. Hops. This is for the First World War. Man, that's amazing. Here's the Italian King Kong poster. And by G. Olivetti. It's a beautiful painting. Cover of Jungle Thrills by L.B. Cole, the great cover artist. That, how could you not buy this comic? It's got everything you want. And I own this comic. This is the best ever. One of the best Superman covers, Jimmy Olsen covers ever. Superman, this joke has gone far enough. I don't want to marry a female King Kong. Sorry, Jimmy, but as local witch doctor, I now pronounce you man and wife. The Bride of Jungle Jimmy. This is so dumb in so many ways. It's like, but of course, how could you not buy this comic? You got to find out why Superman is a witch doctor now and why he has to pronounce the man and wife. It's just like so many questions. This is Kurt Swan and George Klein, 66. God, classic. Just dopey as fuck. This was drawn especially for Arf by Colleen Coover. Not familiar with her work. Kind of cute. And this is Mel Ramos from 1967. I don't know what this is. It doesn't say what this is for, what it's from. But very interesting. I love the gorilla. He really captures that face well. That inscrutable gorilla face. And now we have a portrait of Craig Yo, the editor, by Monty Wolverton. And this is a special Arftoon folio. Get it? And I guess Bill Blackbeard wrote this little intro. I guess it would be weird if Craig Yo wrote the intro to his own work. Man, these are really nice comics. Last issue, we just saw a lot of his sketches and stuff, but this is full-on sequential narrative. This is Mr. Smartass. And Mr. Smartass and Red Fanny in Artsy Fartsy. This not only looks so much fun, I love this cartooning, but it's funny as hell. There's actually a lot of really good dialogue in here. Sorry about that. So I guess the artist is there. Because Mr. Smartass is saying, I could paint better than that. And the artist says, oh, can you? And basically they have an art off. I like this how Mr. Smartass farts in his general direction. And they're going to use Red Fanny as their model. She's all excited. And we see both artists working away, painting away. And the monkey artist, his is kind of like, I don't know, kind of like Magritte or something. And she's like, oh, it's okay. And he's furious. He's like, it's genius. I love the way the monkey gets all distorted when he's angry. And then Smartass just makes a child's drawing, but has hearts all around it. And she loves it. Because she's just glad that Mr. Smartass is her fella. And they get in a fight. But I could definitely read more of these. These are fun as hell. But this is the stuff I really like from Craig Yo. This is called Little Lulu. I don't know why, but it's more of this kind of crazy, psychedelic, old school cartooning meets underground type sketchbook stuff. This stuff is gorgeous. Is that it? Yep. So now we have a thing about tattoos, which he calls tattoons. And this is by Jack Cole from the 40s. I didn't know Jack Cole was doing girly work that early. I just thought he was doing comics. So Craig here does this introduction saying, like, yeah, before comics were like highfalutin graphic novels, they were pretty much the lowest art form, but even lower than them was tattoos. So they share something in common. They're on the bottom rung of the art ladder. And so he wanted to focus on cartoons about tattoos. Here's T.S. Sullivan from the 1890s. It's kind of cute. And the tattoo artist, of course, is a woodpecker who just dips his beak in ink. Here's Don DeCarlo once again of Archie fame. Man, he draws really hot women. I don't get this joke at all. She says, just tattoo the word mink. I don't get it. You have a nice comic by, this is a Fred Kita drew this. It's a story by Hank Chapman, The Last Tattoo. What's it, like a lot of these Atlas comics, it doesn't really make much sense. So this guy's been getting tattoos for, I guess, weeks now from this old lady. And it seems like they hate each other's guts. And I guess because he needs money, he's going to become a tattooed man. So he's investing in all these tattoos so he can work in a circus. All he has left is his back and his chest. And he sees how much the woman is squirreling away in her little safe there. And so he just says, fuck this. I'm just going to kill her and take her money. And then I won't have to become a tattooed man. It's a lot of money. So apparently he's been seeing this woman who already has a boyfriend. He's been seeing her on the sly. And this woman sounds like a real gold digger. She's like, oh, well, if you had money, I'd run away with you. You know, if you could take care of me. So he runs to her and says, look, babe, let's take off. And her boyfriend, I think, is like the strong man at the circus. So he comes home and catches them together. And he says, I told you, if I ever caught you sniffing around my girl. So he rips his shirt off and he looks at his chest and says, oh my God, it's, and the girl sees it too. She says, cover it up, it's horrible. And he's like, what are you guys talking about? I don't have any tattoo on my chest. So he runs away. The guy kind of kicks him out. He's like, what the hell were they talking about? Are they trying to pull my leg or something? And he looks down at his chest and it's a tattoo of him killing that old lady for her money. And he goes to his apartment, and he basically he told Lola to meet him at his apartment at midnight when she could get away from her boyfriend. And she doesn't show up though. Bolo, the boyfriend, shows up, and he says, yeah, she told me all about the dough and about the old witch that's been tattooing you, the one you killed. Now I'm gonna kill you for that dough. No, Bolo, don't. And there ain't no witnesses. Nobody will ever know that I killed you. And then we see on the back, his back, Bolo is killing him. So people will know. Even though it's just a tattoo. I don't know. This story is just kind of silly. But I kind of like it. I really like this Fred Kita art. All these blacks. That's a lot of ink. Here we have a Ronald Searle cartoon from the 50s. Of course, this is one of my earliest. His tattoo artist, it's in a museum. So he's got to have this drunken old sailor there to show off his work. Morph Fiend, Charles Bennett and the Circle of Laugh. This is a weird, interesting cartoonist. This guy, Charles Bennett, I believe these are from like the 20s, the teens and the 20s maybe. And once again, Craig Yo unearthed some interesting artists I never heard of, even though I don't quite get it. This guy, this was his whole shtick, that he loved to make these circles, almost like showing the evolution thing. You know, man, amoebas turning to fish, turning to men. All of his comics were based on this, where like metamorphoses. It's almost like he was trying to do Photoshop before there was Photoshop. And we see this happen. And I guess these were very popular because there's a bunch of them. Almost like that cartoonist last issue we saw who drew from underneath the ground. It's like, oh, it's kind of an interesting shtick. It looks like it took some work, but I don't really see the value of the outcome. It's not that great. Like in this one, a wheel of cheese turns into this woman's dress, and this mouse turns into this woman. I don't know. It's nice art. I can draw, but just a weird little idea. Weird little shtick. Here's almost an autobio strip about the artist who's... he looks pretty cool, actually. I guess him getting a haircut. And they use static electricity to cut his hair. Some really nice art. I like his style. And so this is like a comic strip. You know, sequential narrative. Oh, guys, I was way off. This is from 1866. So he was drawing back then. He was probably almost dead by the 20s. Might have not even lived then. So here's a major event of historical proportions. It's kind of true. 10 unpublished paintings of the Yellow Kid. And I don't know why these were never published before. I guess there was a Yellow Kid comic. There actually was a comic book where they collected a bunch of yellow kids. They figured they could make a lot of money selling them. I think maybe one issue came out. Here's the cover of the first one. And but they had like 10 issues planned, and RF Outcault painted covers for all of them. And that's what we're seeing here. Look at that total Gibson girl he draws in the background. It's weird seeing Outcault draw like that. You know, not drawing some street urchins or Buster Brown. Really nice colors in these. The art's kind of just It's not very fancy, but these look nice. It just baffles me that this was considered funny. The Yellow Kid just saying, "Say, this is a bird." I just can't even imagine people looking at that and going, "Oh, look what he just said. That's hilarious." This is from the cover. Yeah, it appears that Craig Yo has the most amazing art collection. He has all these originals from like the 1800s, from like Punch magazine. He has like whole Jack Kirby stories. He owns the original art from the 50s and 60s. And so now we get a little article about Arf Outcault. A specially commissioned portrait of him by David Cowles, who was in the first issue. He was one of his... oh no, this is another cartoonist. There's a photograph of Outcault with Buster Brown. And this is a portrait of Rube Goldberg, specially commissioned for Arf by Gary Tixali. This is the kind of stuff that Blab descended into over the years. This like really overly designed stuff. it's just a little too, I don't know. It's not pretentious. It's just, I just don't like it. This kind of overly designed stuff. I'd much rather see just a beautiful pencil drawing or ink drawing. I do like some design stuff, but not for me. This guy, actually, speaking of design stuff, he's doing some crazy stuff here, where the initial caps, which are by Rube Goldberg, but then he's doing this thing where all the words are tumbling down, the first two words in every paragraph. So this is all about Rube Goldberg, about his, this is like an essay he wrote about his passion for sculpture. In his later years, Rube Goldberg gave up cartooning and became a sculptor. And at first it was just kind of a fun, goofy thing to do, because they were kind of goofy. Like, this is one of his sculptures. This is the Rubin Award that the National Cartoonist Society gives out every year. But near the end of his life, his sculptures were in fine museums, and they were considered fine art. Here's all designs for his crazy sculptures. Try to crack the spine here. So it's not just getting all these little sketches. This is a previously unpublished Rube Goldberg sketch from 1943. Another one, a self-portrait. So now we have another edition of Cartoonists Go to Hell, Part 2, Art Young. Art Young's an interesting character. He was a cartoonist who did a lot of cartoons for the masses, like really left-wing socialist newspapers. And he was a total socialist. But then he also, to make money, he did cartoons everywhere. Everyone liked his work. So he sold to all the normal markets that a cartoonist would sell to, but he always had time and made time so he could draw for these socialist newspapers. This is really nice. We get a specially commissioned portrait by The Coop. I really like The Coop. I wish he drew comics. I mean, some of his Devil Women kind of look like just Dan Clowes worthy cartooning. Just the faces are so well drawn. That's a really nice one. So I guess he did lots of cartoons about hell. Another previously unpublished self-portrait. Another previously unpublished self-portrait. This is chock full of some treasures, these Arfs. The comic artist hell, being funny 365 days a year. The comic book podcaster's hell, trying to be funny once a year and failing. These are all pretty nice. This is all once again making fun of modern art. Satan saying, "Oh, we're doing over hell. We're making it over in a modernist style." So it's all kooky. Here's even more. Inferno Galleries, abstract, obfustic. If that's not a word, I want to start using it. 4-dimensional paintings. So basically the museums in hell are showing modern art, because I guess that's Art Young's take on it. He doesn't like it. This guy's a good cartoonist. Of course, these cartoons about hell were pretty much political cartoons, showing, people who exploit people in hell. Some of them are just lighthearted, though. Like this guy's getting a tug of war. They're just cinching in his waist. And I guess he's the inventor of the corset. So for all eternity, that's his punishment. And here we have some more Picasso stuff. And this stuff's amazing. Picasso, we already saw in the first one, he had a cartoon. But when he was a young kid, he liked cartoons. And this, I assume... Oh, this is a Picasso portrait specially commissioned by David Plunkett. Once again, this is not my kind of design. So look at all this. This woman's farting fluff. I guess Picasso was a big fan of the Cats and John Kids. Along with Gertrude Stein. Here's a little comic he did in 1903. Look, it's panels and everything. Kind of rough. This is from the late this is from like 1899, 1900. This one is pretty fucking cool. This is, look, it's sequential narrative. I don't see the year on here, but totally modern art, but it's telling a narrative. Here's another little, I think this was just for himself, for his sketchbooks. He did this little cartoon about traveling to Paris. Here's another little goofy cartoon from the sketchbooks. And this I saw once on the internet. This is just like a total abstract comic strip. This is from 1937. This first one's called The Dream and the Lie of Franco. And I wish they published this bigger and in color. I think it might have been published in color. But I wish somebody would find more of this stuff. I'm sure Dolly has stuff like this. In fact, we saw it in ARF #1. Dolly does have stuff like this. But look at this one. This one's incredible. This could be like a Dave McKean comic, or, well, it looks different, of course, but this is some amazing stuff. And it totally looks modern. If this came out in like a new anthology, you'd just be like, oh, who's this great new artist? Amazing. I really wish they published that bigger. And now cartoonists look at Picasso. Picasso was such a huge celebrity. Of course, cartoonists made fun of him, made jokes about him. Here's a little cartoon by Maurice Henry. Not familiar with that guy. Here's a previously unpublished Art Spiegelman sketch. And this is a comic strip he did in 1972. I think this was never published. Let me double check here. This is the character from Ace Hole, Midget Detective. Greta the Goon Girl, the one who looks like Picasso drew her. He was going to do a whole bunch of comic strips about her. But I guess he just made this one. Oh, it's just from a sketchbook. So that's an amazing rarity. And here's a little excerpt from Ace Hole. That's her. I think one of the best comics ever made. It's a really great comic, Ace Hole. And here we have Gene Deitch, Kim Deitch's father, the great animator and cartoonist. This is called Gaston Le Crayon. And a little gag about Picasso. This is Paul Webb from the 30s. Someone should give Picasso a good kick in the pants, Ella. I like that one. This is Bosque from the 60s. It's all in French, so I don't really know what they're saying. I mean, I can kind of know a lot of the words, like fantastique. This is amazing. What a great title. Touchdown for Picasso. I think that's a Guided by Voices song. This is one of those DC like social welfare ads, almost like public service announcements. And this one is so crazy, where it's basically saying, hey kids, it's okay to like sissy stuff, like classical music and painting. And this one kid's a jock. He's like, oh, that's just for sissies. That's so lame. He says, oh, yeah? Well, I'm going to visit your football idol tonight. I guess they're pals. Biff Drake, his name is. And, of course, Biff Drake loves to paint while he listens to Brahms. And I guess that kid learned his lesson. He's the one who knows Biff, sorry. He realizes that he's been foolish. Story by Jack Schiff, art by Sheldon Mayer, 1963. And this is fucking beautiful, as all Gil Elvgren paintings are. Look at this. It's so beautiful. This woman's kind of pissed off because the painter made her look like that. Picasso-like. Feast your eyes on that, guys. That's something else. And there we go. There you go. Arf number 2, Arf Museum. Hope you guys like looking at this. It's so much fun flipping through these again. These are so much fun. I'm sad there's only 2 more left to go. And I hope you guys like looking at it with me. And I hope to see you next time here at the Herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies.